Welcome, everybody, to another episode of our show, Boundary Breakers. I'm your host, Piper McLean, and today we have a truly remarkable guest joining us. Joining us here is Karen Tyrell, CEO and founder of Personalized Dementia Solutions, Inc. We have her experience of over 25 years in this field, and she is an educator, consultant, author, and speaker who has dedicated her career to improving the lives of those affected by dementia, advocating for the personal-centered care and offering creative solutions for caregivers and those alike. So from her pioneering work to the impact of this field in both inspiring and transformative ways, we're so excited to dive into her journey and insights today. So welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a real pleasure.
I'm glad that we're having this conversation. For those of you that aren't behind the scenes with us, we actually met a very couple months ago. So I've been super excited to get into this because I feel like dementia is something that not enough people know about that affects a majority of people. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into this field?
For sure. Okay. When I was in high school, I knew I needed to find a career that I was going to be happy with. I had heard of people leaving high school, going off to college or university, and coming back saying they don't like it. And I
Mm.
remember thinking, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I want to make sure I put all that money into this program or schooling, and I would be happy. So I decided to start volunteering around my community to see what I would really like to do. I remember doing a co-op placement with children at a daycare, thinking, is it children I need to be working with? Because I wanted to be in the helping field, and I know there's a lot of people out there that have that. You want to help others. And then I realized, there's something missing. So then I thought, I'm going to volunteer in my hospital in my community. They put me in the radiology department. And that was pretty exciting. I got to wear a white coat and, I was helping them at, oh, sorry, I
Very
apologize.
lab, yeah.
Yes. But before that, they put me in health records, the department called health records, and computers were just coming out and they were
Mhm.
really working with computers in the hospital. And I thought I would like that because I like to be organized and I do like working with computers, but it wasn't for me. We were in the basement and there was only 5 women in the room and they were doing their work. And I thought, I'm not helping people here. So they put me in radiology and I was helping the seniors and any adult actually go and get ready for their exam, their screening, their x-ray, whatever it might be. And I thought this is what I want to do with all the technology and the working with people and it was moving. But I didn't get into radiology school.
Mhm.
They only take about 30 students a year in the hospital. That
Oh,
was not too far away.
wow.
And unfortunately, my math marks were not the best. So that might have been the reason. So then I thought, wait a minute, though. There must be a reason why I'm not going down the path of radiology. But what did I really love about it? And I remember thinking it was the older adults. I really loved talking with them and trying to keep them calm and not be too anxious about their exam. And I like that. So what do? I go and volunteer in my local community at a nursing home. And the very first day, I knew this is what I needed to be doing. I just felt it. It just was like an energy through my body. It was like, this is where I need to be.
Eureka. Hmm.
Yes. And I was actually working alongside an individual who's in the recreation department because I wanted to be a nurse, I have to admit, but there's something wrong where I cannot be a good team
Yeah.
member as a nurse. So I thought, oh, I can't do this, but how can I still help? Well, in recreation, I can make seniors smile. I can make them
Yeah.
laugh, make them feel engaged. And this is what I love doing. So then I went off to school, found a program in Toronto, Ontario. It was a 2-year diploma program, but I had to do 3 days of practical work in the classrooms, like learning, the theories behind everything. But 2 days every week, I had to go in a nursing home and do a practicum placement. And I really got to see, and during those practicum, that time of practicum, it was the older adults in the dementia ward that I really gravitated to. So I knew I had to be dedicating to supporting the people with dementia at that time. And that was back in 1995.
Oh my gosh. So you've really found your footing in this field right from the beginning.
Yes.
So, what about dementia made you want to stay in this field, and why do you think it's so important to pursue?
Good question. Okay, so I have to tell this quick story where I remember leaving at the end of the day of the unit, the dementia care unit, and it had double doors and it had the keypad so that they can't leave and because it's unsafe for them to be on their own. And there was about three or four little old ladies. They were so adorable, saying, "Where are you going?" I said, "I have to leave now. All done. I'm still learning about dementia." And they're like, "Well, we're coming with you," kind of thing. And I'm like, "Uh-oh, no, no, you can't. You have
Mm-hmm.
to stay." And I still didn't have the skills yet to know how to keep them calm and not get them anxious about wanting to leave with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically hurried up out the door and shut it as fast as I could, locking them out from following me because I didn't want to get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But what I noticed on the other side of those double doors, because they had curtains that were a little bit sheer, and they were there pulling on the door, banging on the door, "Take us with you, don't leave us here." And I was feeling awful. Like it really bothered me that these people were feeling as if they were caged up. And I
Mm-hmm.
did not want that. These are humans. They're human beings. Why are we treating them this way? And I should have done a better job. And I noticed that the staff had a lot to still also learn about how to approach properly. And the environment was incorrect because they should have had those double doors camouflaged so they didn't look like exits as we move on in the world of dementia care after 1995. We did more strategies on not helping them to feel like they're caged in and to
Mm-hmm.
not have them all sitting around that door, like have another area for them to be around because if they're watching people in and out, obviously it's going to trigger them. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to make a difference. So in my journey, I did some volunteer work for the Alzheimer's Society. I did end up working in long-term care in the recreation department and learning all these wonderful techniques on how to get creative, how to support them, camouflage things, hide this, don't say that. And I really enjoyed it. And I knew I was in the right field. It felt good. I don't even know what life is like when you're not loving your job. And I just want to say that I hope whoever's listening, please find your passion and follow it. It opens doors for you. And throughout my life, doors opened so many times for new adventures, but it was always in this field of dementia care. And
Mm-hmm.
fast forward to 2000 and I think it was 17, I helped work on the design team for the very first dementia village in Canada. And I got to make the designs so much better than that ward that was for those individuals I first worked with in 1995 in Toronto. So it's giving them freedom of movement, letting them have outdoor space and living in little houses as opposed to a hospital setting. And so I'm just loving making these changes and then wanting to educate people on how they can also use these techniques to keep the person feeling calm.
What an inspiring take. And I have a few pieces that I want to pull from that. So, just to touch on this really quickly, not as related to dementia, but following your passions is always going to, bring about greater opportunity because you care more about what you're doing, right? So, you're right on the money with that. And about finding the proper techniques to, work and aid those that do have dementia. Now, that is something that is super interesting to me. I was just recently watching this. It's like a cop show. It's called The Rookie. It's on Crave for all of us in Canada. And there was a, older woman, and she was like yelling for help from inside an apartment. So the, officers busted in and they seen that she was tied down to her wheelchair. And she was saying like, "Oh, like it's okay. I'm just waiting for Lucas." And we find out that Lucas is her son. And he tied her down because he had a job interview, and she has dementia and he didn't want to leave her alone, but he doesn't have the, funds to care for or to be able to pay for proper care for her. Obviously, that's a wrong way to go about this situation, and he was arrested. But that sparked something in me, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm wondering how, people that do struggle financially, support their family members when they can't be there all the time. So where does that sort of story take your mind as someone who has experience in the field?
Wow. So yes, it is very expensive to
Mm,
care for somebody with advanced dementia. Now, earlier stages, sometimes they're doing fine on their own with a little bit of support. But
mm,
when they move down the journey and their brain is no longer functioning as it used to, and they're doing inappropriate things, because part of the symptoms of dementia is definitely poor memory, and everybody knows that. And it could be just short-term memory, but the long-term memories are really intact
mm,
for quite some time. But there's also a symptom of poor thinking abilities where they're thinking through problem solving and they're not able to do it as easily. And they
mm,
can't think through how do I get from here to the shopping center now and where they used to always do it.
mhm,
There's also poor judgment. So
mhm,
they're making unsafe decisions that, that may appear really, really odd, but in their mind, for some reason, it's fine to stand on a chair that has wheels,
mhm,
and to reach for something.
mhm,
And so lots of poor judgment is happening. There is some communication challenges that can show up, and also their personality can really change. And this is hard on the families to watch all these symptoms happen to the individual.
mhm,
But when they're unsafe to be on their own,
mhm,
we need to use the best strategies possible. And sometimes there is government supports for families to access. But it is a real challenge if families don't have the funds, but also if the families don't have the knowledge and the
mhm,
skills and the coaching to help them through the day-to-day issues, such as they want to leave to go home, even though they're already home. Because
mhm.
they've gone back in time and they think they still live on the
At
house
a different
when they
house,
were
yeah. Mhm,
a teenager, and they're looking in their mind, that's where I'm supposed to live. But they forgot all those other layers of time that have happened in their life. So how to teach the families what to say in that moment? A lot of them will say, but you are home. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, and so there's war, and I want harmony for the families, and I want to give them some techniques, and I teach a lot about that. I teach about how to use what I call therapeutic reasoning.
okay.
You need to be able to reason with people in a way that's going to keep the peace so we can keep from having the conflict that happens. And anyways, there's lots of techniques, but yeah, we want to do the right thing and we don't want to end up having situations of neglect,
Mhm,
abuse, that type of thing, because it's not easy. It's
mhm,
not easy. And I don't recommend caring for somebody with dementia through the whole journey
mhm,
by yourself. It is not humanly possible.
mhm, mhm. I'm getting such a deeper perspective. So we've kind of danced a little bit around, this topic. So what is dementia? And if you're thinking of some of like the other cognitive issues like Alzheimer's, what differentiates the two?
Great question. And there's so many people who get mixed up with this.
Mm,
I'll try my best to explain, but sometimes even after the explanation, it can fall back into, well, what's the difference? So,
assumption. Mhm,
so let me just start with, to make it simple. Sometimes when a person is diagnosed with a cancer, let's say cancer, and if I said to you, I have cancer, then you might want to know what kind,
yeah.
right? Because it could be skin cancer, it could be breast cancer, it could be, liver cancer, like it could be a variety of things. When somebody says they have dementia, we want
Hmm.
to ask the same thing, like what kind of dementia?
Yeah.
Because there's many kinds out there. Now, there are types of dementia that happen very quickly, very, very slowly as well. And
Okay.
Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia.
Okay.
So, and it's very, very slow, but it's the most common type of dementia. Now, let me back up. When a person gets diagnosed with having dementia, a clinician, doctor, practitioner would say, okay, let's look. Do they have the symptoms of dementia? So I mentioned poor memory, poor thinking, poor judgment, communication problems, and their personality is different, and they're
Hmm.
doing, they're not themselves. Those come together when they're happening at the same time, then they're told they have the syndrome of dementia. So
Okay.
dementia is a syndrome. And so let me just explain a syndrome quickly. When you have a cold, you get all kinds of symptoms that are so
Oh
much
yeah.
fun.
Hmm.
So it's a syndrome, sore throat, runny nose. When we have them all together, it's a syndrome and we have this the cold. With
Okay.
dementia, we have to have all the symptoms happening to call it the syndrome of dementia. But again, we want to know what's causing that
Yeah.
person to have those
Mhm.
because some people could have those symptoms of dementia, but it's a treatable
Mhm.
situation. So it can be related to a low B12 vitamin in their body. And then
Okay.
once we raise the B12 level, the person goes back to normal. Those
Mm.
symptoms go away. So why I want people when they first detect, all right, they've been told they have dementia or they have a poor memory and they have poor thinking, and go get this looked into because it might be something treatable. And
Mm.
thyroid condition. It could be related to an infection. It could be related to even depression.
Mm.
If you don't treat depression, it can turn into those symptoms. So once we treat depression, the symptoms of dementia can go away. So it's important to go get this looked at and get it treated if it's treatable. But unfortunately, there are many people who are experiencing the non-curable types of
Mhm.
dementia at this time, and Alzheimer's disease is the top one.
I see. So that is something that I've never, really realized until, having this conversation. So other than, the curable with the B12 and other reasons like depression and Alzheimer's, what other types are there um of these sorts of issues?
Okay, so the non-curable types would be Alzheimer's disease is the top one. And then the next one I'll talk about is vascular dementia. Vascular dementia is common with those who have high blood pressure. And high blood pressure can cause mini strokes in the brain. And
Hmm.
so a person will be functioning well, but then all of a sudden they get a mini stroke, maybe right here. There's a drop
Hmm.
that there's a damage, but they can continue with just to have that
Yeah.
damage happening. They can still make do, but then maybe later another mini stroke. And this part of the brain now is damaged, but they can continue at that level. So it's basically a step down process. And unfortunately, there's no cure at this time, but there are preventable things that we can do, such as continue to exercise, keep our blood pressure in check, and eating healthy. Those types of things can help, and not smoking and those
Yes.
types of issues. But there's also types of dementia that can be related to like Parkinson's disease.
Mhm.
So people who develop the symptoms of Parkinson's down the road with that journey, a person might end up showing the symptoms of dementia with their Parkinson's.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's also another type of dementia called Lewy body dementia, which the journey is more like this, up and down, up and down, up and down, all the way through. So there's great days, and then they think they're fine, but then the next day they're talking silly stuff and it doesn't make sense. And so it's important to understand, well, this is the type of the dementia we're dealing with, and it's not an easy one, not
Hmm.
an easy one.
Hmm.
Lots of paranoid behavior and different challenges with it. But there's so many more. There's even people who have problems with aphasia. So there's another type of progressive aphasia that can be. I don't want to complicate things, but there's another one called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, and this one's related to mad cow disease, and a lot of people would probably
Okay.
remember that. Creutzfeldt-Jakob is a very quick type of dementia where they'll
Mhm.
lose lots of the cognitive abilities more quickly than Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's can go about 20 years with the symptoms slowly changing over time.
Mhm. So we're talking about these changes, like you said, it's an up and down sort of thing. And obviously, dementia in all of its types is more prominent in, the older generation, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm wondering, you know, my Grammy, she's super healthy. She was just visiting this summer, but I've noticed that she's starting to become more forgetful. Like she got out of the shower and left the shower on, and like she's a real whippersnipper. So is this sort of memory decline something that's common in older people, or is it a bigger thing secretly?
Well, there is normal aspects of aging. and we will not be able to retain information as easily. We will have challenges thinking through problem solving. That's just a normal part of aging. Now, there's normal things like, you run upstairs to go get
Mm.
something and you
And you
like,
don't
okay,
remember
you
what you
get
went
there.
for. Yep, I do that. Yeah.
We all do that. And you come back downstairs and then there it is, you go back up.
Yeah.
What's not normal is when we go upstairs because somebody maybe said to you, go grab me a sweater. You go upstairs, you get there, you see this and you play with this. You see this and you do this. And then you head back downstairs. And then where's my sweater? You never asked me for the sweater. That's not
Ah,
normal.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. And
Yeah.
that's a
Now,
big difference.
what do you call her? Nanny, granny?
I call her Grammy. Yeah, she does
Grammy.
not take well to any other grandma name.
Now, Grammy's coming from another place and getting settled into a new environment. Sometimes it needs some time for them to get used to the procedural aspects of their environment and what to do next, what to do next. So it could have been just, oh, I completely didn't, and she have her hearing aids in? Like, I don't know if she can hear the shower still running and she didn't turn around to see it. I don't know because hearing loss is a part of normal aging as well for a lot of people. So I'm not sure how the bathroom is set up. Was it her fault or not? But if you do start to notice even behavioral changes, that it's not her personality, as I mentioned, and she's having difficulties with making good judgments and all the time.
Mhm.
And poor memory, you just told her something and she asks you the same question 15 times later. That's not normal.
Yeah. You see that's also giving me more insight into just some of the struggles that people with dementia might be going through. So we're talking about these changes over time. What are some of these changes that we see in people that do have dementia?
Well, as mentioned, that poor memory. So they'll be asking over and over again the same question. Well,
Mhm.
when are we supposed to go to that doctor's? Well, it's Friday at 2. Okay. When are we going to the doctor's? Friday at 2. Okay,
Mhm.
that's not normal, but it's very common. We
Mhm.
also see people having challenges with not knowing they have something wrong with themselves. So
Mhm.
let's say they're not cooking properly, they're making mistakes, they're following instructions, they can't think through how to do the recipes anymore, and they're making a lot of mistakes. And when a family member comes in and says, look, dad or mom or whoever it might be, you're having challenges, and they say, no, I'm not. I'm
Mhm.
fine. I don't have anything wrong with me. Well, you're getting into car accidents all the time. You're not doing good, you're having problems and so we need to help you.
Mhm.
Well, that unfortunately is a condition that's very common in dementia. And I know it's a long word I'm going to say, but it's called anosognosia. And
Okay.
there's many people affected by anosognosia who have dementia,
Mhm.
especially Alzheimer's disease, where they think, I have nothing wrong with me. I am perfectly fine. I don't need anybody's help. But they do need help. And so they're going to put up a front, like a pushback on any
Yeah.
help. And so that's where families need the guidance on how to support this person who is affected not only by dementia, but also anosognosia. And so
Mm.
that becomes a real struggle. So you're going to see people, it looks like denial,
Yeah.
but it's not denial. It's a no awareness that they even have a problem.
Mm. I
So
see.
it's takes some skills, and I teach a lot of that on how to support those people. But other changes could be paranoid behavior. People are trying to steal from them. They never used to be paranoid, more anxious about things. What are we doing again? Where are we going? Who's coming? Why do we have to do this? A lot of anxiety will start to show up. Even agitation will show up, agitated about little things where they
Mhm.
never used to get agitated for little things. Now they're starting to have that happen.
Mhm.
Or they're again saying inappropriate things in at the restaurant. They're
Mhm.
saying something to the waitress that's a little bit rude. I just heard recently he wanted to grab her butt at the restaurant. And it's
Like,
like, first
yeah,
of all, you
we
can't
can't
do that.
say that. Yeah.
So it's like, but those are the inappropriate things because of poor judgment.
I see. So now that we've kind of got a bit of a basis for, what the individuals with dementia might be going through, I know that you prepared a little bit of a walkthrough sort of seminar for us. So why don't we dive right into that and, put some of this new knowledge into practice?
This is very, very quick, what I was going to share. I can show it to you.
Yeah.
But let me just pull this up here. And I worry about the family caregivers. The family caregivers are the ones that are frontline, usually. So let me just put this from the beginning. There we go. Oops, not the beginning. Sorry, I had a whole bunch of presentation about dementia. And actually, this is the actual definition by the World Health Organization, because a lot of people think dementia is a disease. So
Mm.
just wanted you to be aware of that. Actually, to get to that slide, I'm going to have to keep working further. So let me get there first.
Yep. Take
Oh,
all the
yeah.
time that you need.
Okay. So I am very, very worried about the families from current slide. Oh, it didn't show up properly either. Oh my goodness, hold on. Um, so we don't want to end up like that gentleman, like you said, that is a slow show slide. Okay, why? I usually never have troubles with this.
You know, that's
See.
that's what they that's what the showbiz is like.
Ah, a share from current slide. There we go. Okay. No, it's actually still showing up. I'm not sure what happened here, but I'm going to just move down. And these are the symptoms that I did talk about: poor memory, poor thinking, judgment,
Mm-hmm.
communication,
Mm-hmm.
personality changes. Here's just a quick review of all the treatable types of dementia and then non-curable types. I didn't get through all of them, but these are just a few. And oh, by the way, if there's a sudden change in a person, anybody you're caring for, your grams does have a sudden change, like all of a sudden, please note that it could be a medical emergency because it's called delirium, and
Okay.
delirium could be related to pain, infection, dehydration, medication errors, low sodium. All of these things can call delirium. So we just want to be careful that we're not saying, oh, they've got dementia, it must be old timers disease. When they suddenly start to have some weird symptoms of dementia, please consider it might be delirium, which is treatable, and we'll have to do an investigation. Uh,
Okay.
Changes we talked about really quickly about the anosognosia, refusing care, anxiety. I went through this a little bit. By the way, a lot of people will wander. And that gentleman you talked about from the movie who tied his mom down, which is so wrong, probably trying to prevent her from wandering away and getting lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
so many people do get lost in our communities that have symptoms of dementia because of their poor memory, poor thinking, and poor judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But I always like to try to tell people, let's just put ourselves in that person's shoes and how hard it might be for them. And I go through lots of support for the families to try to help them to get through. And I only chose the tip number one, which here is about keeping the peace. Okay, so very, very important in dementia care. People can get frustrated, families can get frustrated, but we really want to keep the peace. And there's things that I teach about, how we engage positively, validate people's feelings, even say I'm sorry, even though we're not. But if we said I'm sorry, when they're the ones that forgot or they're the ones that didn't do it right, it may make a difference to keep the peace. And I talked about the importance of therapeutic reasoning for people who can't be reasoned with, and reasoning with a person that's going to bring about a benefit, a positive for everyone. And when we use therapeutic reasoning, we're helping to reassure that person with dementia, even though they have difficulties understanding, we do our best to reassure them. So I would say things like, yeah, yep, you're right. Even though they're wrong, I would just let them go. I would also tell them I'm going to look into it, because a lot of people feel reassurance. Oh, good, you're going to look into that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though what they're asking doesn't make sense. They're asking about their workplace, but they've been retired for years. So
Yeah.
anybody that works with older adults, I really encourage them to understand the value of using therapeutic reasoning. Or sometimes we do have to tell them that their worries are solved, that they're going through. And I really tell people, would you rather be right or do you want peace?
Mm-hmm.
So those are just some of the things. And then I'll just wrap it up with, to be a caregiver, whether you're young or you're older caring for a loved one, I believe you will not survive with all my years of experience. It's been 28 years now working with families, working with individuals in all stages of dementia, that I do support groups, I do one-on-one coaching. And what I've learned over all these years is that if people don't follow these top 3 tips, they won't survive. So, number one, we need to take breaks. We need to take time off, no caregiving, just do things that you love, take your breaks. Number two, talk things out. Talk to a professional, talk to families, talk to friends. Just be sure that you're letting it out. Or if you're journaling, or come to support groups like I offer or support groups in your community with other peers who are caregivers. That's a huge one. And then the third one is never stop learning, because there's going to be strategies that you may not realize that will help keep the peace. And I was just talking to a family member before this call who said her husband is obsessed with his shoes. He will not take them off. So when she takes them off, I told her next time, maybe have a bag beside his bed at night, and he puts his shoes in the bag and he can sleep with his shoes in the bed if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Get creative, because he puts up a fight, but maybe the reason why he's putting up a fight is because he doesn't want to part with his shoes. So she needed to learn some of these techniques. And there's so many creative techniques that I teach, because that's the main thing of what I do is I teach on how we manage the changed behaviors. So please never stop learning. And so
Mm.
those are the 3 tips again. So I just wanted to share that. So
Thank you
I
so
could talk
much.
for hours on this, so I'm so sorry.
No worries. Thank you so much for sharing those tips. We have quite a few comments in the chat about
Oh,
how eye-opening this conversation is. So we are definitely going to leave time at the end to, answer some of these questions that we have from the audience. But I would like to dive even deeper into the others that are affected by, a family member or a loved one that does have dementia. So let me go to where I want to be. Okay, so we've talked about how frustrating it may be when you are, aiding a loved one that does have dementia. So to get over that frustration, how are some ways that you would advise them to be able to work through the emotional side, the emotional toll that, this task may take on them?
right. And so that's where talking it out is so important. For people that hold it in, I notice they are struggling. So we do need to talk about what's bothering that person for that scenario, whether it's because they're refusing to take their meds and we keep fighting, or they constantly want to, hide the remote control on everybody in the household. They constantly are doing things that are just odd behavior. And if you don't talk to others about how to handle this, it's going to be really, really frustrating. And again, once you ask and get what I hope is dementia solutions on how to handle these challenges, then you can let out the emotional side of things, like, okay, I've got that problem solved, but and then the tears might come, like, this is hard, this is not easy. And being around others who get it and who care will really help those scenarios. But if we're not getting that guidance on the odd behaviors that can happen in the day to day, families are just maybe doing techniques and strategies that are not effective enough. And
Mhm.
if only they knew how to use these other creative strategies. I've got so many other strategies in my toolbox because I've used them, and other families have shared what they've used. So I've collected a lot over the years, whereas these families alone may not have those tools in their toolbox, and are, that whole saying, you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
don't want that for families. I want them to know ways you can do this. And if not, seek support, talk to people like myself, or join support groups, uh, and but then continue to work with the healthcare professionals on the journey, get that support, because if there's a delirium, we're going to need some antibiotics. We're going to
Mhm.
need maybe some support there as well if it's an infection for delirium. So we definitely need to build a supportive team, that we can talk to and be around and go to for our challenges along the dementia journey, which could be
Ex-
very long.
Exactly. Because to have that sort of backing, you have to have experience, or be in
Yeah.
contact with someone that has, lived through those struggles.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned earlier putting yourself in their shoes. Like, yes, it's frustrating dealing with, um, you know, someone in your life who their mind is working in a completely different way. But imagine how frustrating it would be to not know your own mind anymore. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
insane.
We want to build more compassion by just putting ourselves in their shoes and understanding, well, their memory isn't working. So, how would I feel if I couldn't remember what I did yesterday? Those types of things. But also to know that if you're a family caregiver, if you are supporting someone, at some point it may be necessary to get more help and in the form of moving them to a care environment that will have that extra help. So I just want to remind people we try our best to care for them at home and we get our support surrounding us as we do that. But at some point, to know that it is going to be necessary to get help. Not everybody, but maybe that full-time 24-hour rotated staff, who come in and have their breaks and then they can come back to work the next day, is going to need to make a difference for that person.
Exactly. And that is why it is so inspiring that you are working in so many different avenues to help people with dementia. So, I would love to talk about your guide that you've been working on. So, let's talk a little bit about cracking the dementia code. What does this book symbolize? What are you trying to do with it? And how do you think it could be helpful for anyone that might be reading it?
So for me, when I saw that families didn't know the strategies, I was volunteering to help at a support group when I first moved to BC. So I live now in BC. And this was in 2009. And I noticed the families really wanted solutions. They didn't want just the touchy-feely, oh, that's sad, isn't it? How are you feeling with all this? They really, what do I do? What do I say? And so I thought, you know what? And then at the same time, when I first moved here, I noticed that there was the staff in the care home on the dementia ward, I felt didn't have the right techniques either. So I was kind of disappointed with that. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to become a dementia consultant and educator. And I decided so I created this workshop for the people that I had in my mind who didn't have the right techniques, how to teach them, because English wasn't always their first language for many of the members that worked there. And so I wanted to make something easy to help them understand how do we manage the behavior changes that we're seeing with our loved ones in a real positive way, in a very effective way. So I put together a workshop called Cracking the Dementia Code. And with that, it was gaining popularity. People loved the workshop. It was a fun, workshop. It still is. I just did it last night
Mhm.
for a home care company. And so I feel as though these techniques needed to be shared in a fun, easy type of learning environment, and I like to make it positive. And after doing that for a few years, there were people who said, "I'd love to come to your workshop, but I'm in, one
Yeah.
person was in Saskatchewan. I hear you're doing this great stuff." So, and Zoom wasn't invented at that time,
Mhm.
and so I decided to write the book. And so the book has all the information that I shared in the workshop and then some. So a couple of chapters for the family caregiver and more details around some creative approaches, things like proper communication. But cracking the dementia code is all around understanding the behavior. And we need to become a detective to understand the meaning behind the behavior that we're seeing in that moment. Because if we can really get into the why is this person yelling, or why is this person not doing that? And why are they refusing to take a bath? Why? Because everybody has a different reason why. And so my goal is to be person-centered. We
Mhm.
need to know their reason why so that we can provide the next step, which was, so there's two steps I teach. Step number one is be the detective. Step
Mhm.
number two, let's put on our creative hat. Let's now get creative for that person's why they're doing this and put yourself in their shoes. Like, why do you think they're angry? Well, they're angry because no one told them that, that their daughter is away on a business trip or whatever. And then so, okay, so how would you feel if you have poor memory and people keep telling you, but you forget, then let's make notes. Let's do other things. Let's do all we can to reassure that person to keep them calm in creative ways.
Mhm.
Anyways, I can go on and on about managing behaviors, but Cracking the Dementia Code turned into a book in 2013, and I continue to educate that type of methodology of the system of how we manage behaviors and how we be the detective. So I really teach how to become the detective, and then we give so many creative ways that you can now use in order to help that individual.
So is that where the customization piece of your work really comes into play?
Yes. So my business name you mentioned at the beginning is actually Personalized
Hmm.
Dementia Solutions. It has to be personalized for every individual. We're all unique human beings. I can't say, oh, yep, to move them into a care home, you have to do this.
Hmm.
Well, again, I was just on the phone earlier with the lady when we're going to have to use therapeutic reasoning to encourage him to go to the care home and use whatever works for that person. And so one lady, one husband, I said, when you bring your wife in, say that you're all going on a business trip and she's just going to stay at this resort for
Hmm.
a week.
Hmm.
And, we might have to do
Yeah.
but it might keep her calm. Oh, she's used to him always going on business trips and it's only a week. Okay, I'll go. But if you said to her, you're moving out, you're moving in there forever,
Yeah.
how do you think she'd feel?
Yeah.
I know people think you're lying to the person, but I call it therapeutic reasoning. And
Hmm.
so if it's going to help her get settled, to get her to acclimatize to the environment, the sounds, the people, the smells, and just let her get used to it. And maybe after about 2 weeks of her being there, oh yeah, I gotta stay one more week, honey. I miss you. I'll see you soon. That's she gets the reassurance, she gets letters, your husband's away, do a video call. Hi, honey, I miss you. I haven't abandoned you. I'm just working hard. You know how I work to keep her calm because I know I would want that.
Hmm. So, do you, in that sort of scenario, do the husbands and the families still visit their, family members that are struggling with dementia often and stuff inside the homes?
It depends on the circumstance. It depends on the individual and how they react. Some of them are there daily. Some of them are there, a couple of times a week or weekly or monthly. Everyone's going to be different. It depends on their relationship as well. Of course, we want to get them used to the home and comfortable in the home as quickly as possible. If they're stressed, if they moved in under so much stress, like you stuck me here. Why? I'm fine. I could have lived on my own. I know how to take care of myself. But we know they can't. Then it causes challenges. And I've seen
Mhm.
that. I remember coaching a family. Let's say this. Let's say your home needed to be renovated and a new furnace has to be put in. So stay here for a little bit. We
Yeah.
tried to get creative for her, but then unfortunately, the people in the home thought that's not appropriate and they wanted to be honest. And it caused so many challenges. The
Mhm.
care staff could not support her. She locked herself in the room, angry, wanting to call the police, wanting to call a lawyer, get me out of here. It was awful. And she didn't last long. She
Yeah.
passed away not too long after with all this stress.
Yeah. And the impact of stress is something that takes a toll on the mind, the body, everything, your emotions. So it's completely understandable that you have to find different ways to navigate. This therapeutic reasoning is such an interesting concept for me because you're completely right. Like, not everything is going to be rational. Yes, like in the grand scheme of things, like lying in most circumstances is wrong.
Sure, but if we're hurting a person, we're
Mhm.
trying to be
Mhm.
deceitful in a negative way. But
Mhm.
if we're trying to help them to understand, like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll come back tomorrow, even though or some people have to say, I'm just going to go to the car and park the car, and then they leave for the night, and then they get busy. Then the staff will keep them busy and do
Yeah.
other things so that they're not missing. And then they tend to forget that the daughter was there just a few moments ago. And that's okay. We have to unfortunately use things to our advantage
Yeah.
such as the poor memory, but the goal is to keep the peace, and we're
Mhm.
here to help them, not hurt them.
Yeah. That's very, very, very helpful and helps me definitely gain more perspective. And I think that, you know, more people need to understand and really get their feet wet and inside of, the experience of what it actually means to be a caregiver or to put yourself in the shoes of someone that does have dementia. So
Yeah.
I would love to open the floor to anybody in the audience that may have some questions for Karen. So I'll let you guys prepare that and I'll um, relay one that we already have in the chat. So, is dementia mostly caused by genetic factors, or are there external factors that may increase the chance of dementia?
Okay, so great question. So I'm going to go back to it depends on the type of dementia.
Okay.
Okay. So for example, I just want to say age, unfortunately, is our biggest risk factor for all of us. The older we get, age is going to be a risk factor. But so, for example, with Alzheimer's disease, the most common, they say that there are two types. So there is the type that is, we'll say only about 5 to 7% was the last numbers I recall of stats, where it is in the family. It is passed down 5 to 7%.
Mm-hmm.
But the other, like close to 95%, they call it sporadic. And
Mm-hmm.
they don't fully understand yet. So we still need more research done on why people are getting Alzheimer's disease.
Mm-hmm.
But there's types of dementia, like I said, vascular dementia earlier. We've got to keep our body healthy. We need to exercise, get that blood flow, get the high blood pressure under control to keep that from damaging the mini strokes in our brain. There's another type of dementia where it's related to alcoholism. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, that's a risk factor that we can modify if we're not over, people who become alcoholics, they're drinking a little bit more than they should every day, can actually bring on a syndrome called Korsakoff syndrome. So, or Wernicke encephalopathy. So these are types of situations that bring on the symptoms of dementia that can be modifiable. So again, depends on the type of dementia. Parkinson's disease, again, that is its potential to be in the family as well. It can, not everybody has, I think it's 30% can be hereditary with Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
So we just know that yes, genetics is a relation, but there is times that people have been diagnosed with through some testing that
Mm-hmm.
they do carry the gene that does is
Mm-hmm.
related to Alzheimer's. They're carrying it, but it doesn't evolve. It doesn't turn into
Okay.
dementia symptoms. So why is that? They're still trying to understand. Is it sort of like a gene that has to be ignited and turned on? And once it's turned on, we start showing symptoms? Or do we all carry, these types of situations in our body? And or is it related to what we're eating, what we're, you know, doing? But in our worlds, where we live in the world as well, pollution, that sort of thing. But they're not 100% sure. But I do want to say sleep
Mm-hmm.
is very important. If we're not getting our sleep at night, we're not going into deep sleep, then our microglia can't go clean
Mm-hmm.
the plaque out of our brain, which Alzheimer's disease is known for like high plaque in the brain. So let's get our sleep at night, get good sleep, deep sleep, so you can help our body remove the plaque naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And then staying social. And then I love what you're doing with your organization. You're bringing the youth with the seniors and keeping them happy and keeping their spirits up. Everyone's staying social. And that is a huge factor too, because if we're not social, we're isolating, we can end up with depression. And as I mentioned earlier, depression can bring on symptoms of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much more. I don't want to go too deep, but
Mm-hmm. But it's definitely something that is, making me think deeper for sure. Um, Another person in the chat mentioned that their grandma is starting to show signs, like forgetting things quickly, asking the same question multiple times, etc. Do you have any tips for how they can talk to her about their concerns?
okay, so some people will be open to it. Or some people will have the condition of anosognosia, where no matter how much you tell them they're making mistakes, No, I'm fine.
Mhm.
You're the one being forgetful. They might
Yeah.
tell you that. So you can try, if you get that type of response where I'm fine, then there's no point.
Yeah.
No point. Don't even talk to them about their changes. Just go, yeah, grandma, you're fine. Yeah, you're doing great.
Mhm.
But we still have to provide the right supports without her
Yeah.
knowing. And we might have to in a sneaky way, like, oh, I just stopped in because I had nothing to do. Wink, wink. I
Yeah.
stopped in because I had to come watch on you because I'm worried about you. So, but we don't tell her that.
Mhm.
But there are those that don't have anosognosia, and maybe I would open it up to ask them, how are you feeling with everything? Are you noticing changes as you're getting older? Start the conversation to see how they feel. And then from there, see where you can then lead it, whether it's time to bring in supports or will they allow that? Um, will they allow you to help them with creative ideas like putting labels on
Mhm.
drawers and closets and that sort of thing? Because or put a hook by the door that says purse so that they can always remember that's where their purse goes so they don't lose it all the time. We could try to give them some little creative environmental changes to keep them independent and get creative with them. I don't know if that helps, but whoever the person's question, you're welcome to reach out to me. I always do a free consultation with the first clients that I work with to give them some ideas and some help. Or people can also come to my support group
Mhm.
that I offer as well through Zoom.
Perfect. So we'll make sure that those links and whatnot are easily accessible for you guys if you are, interested in talking to Karen a little bit more about this. We also have another person in the chat who is wondering what your upcoming projects are where they can see more of this experience in action and learn more from your expertise in dementia.
Well, so projects that I'm working on, there's a variety of different, I'm supporting some other care homes that are trying to create memory care types of environments. But our team within Dementia Solutions, we are creating a new family support membership. So this membership site is going to have all kinds of educational little snippets, and we call them our knowledge nuggets. We
Mhm.
will have about dementia. We will have videos of me, and the whole book, Cracking the Dementia Code, has been put into a video for those that can't have time to read. They can listen. So we've done that. It's also going to be a place where there's going to be more supports for the support groups, but also every Wednesday, we're going to have a weekly Wednesday free drop-in session for people to come and ask questions. So it's our weekly Wednesday Q&A. And so we want to help the families on a regular basis as much as possible. And then we're going to have lots of resources in this membership site where they can go and find what I've been using, the websites that I've been sharing with so many families that I've worked with over the years. We've just put them all together and then just thought, you know what? Early stage people, you might need this. And people in the middle stages, you might need this. So we put all these resources together. And we've also have been doing like almost like a podcast where we're interviewing the family caregiver so that other families who may not have time to go to a support group can learn some of these creative
Mm.
strategies that that one family had done, and it might spark ideas for them. So we have these caregiver stories within the membership. So that's our big project we're working on. But coming up, I do have a free workshop on the 25th of September. It's going to be at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and it's all around. It's called Breaking Barriers. It's kind of neat. This
Oh
is
my
our
gosh, look at that.
breaking barriers, and it says how to support people who refuse care. How to encourage them to get assistance and get them support who have anosognosia. So it's an hour workshop. Anybody's welcome to sign up. The links are in my website under the events coming up.
Okay, perfect. So we'll get all that info out there, like I said. So, as we're coming to the end of our discussion, Karen, what are some of the key takeaways you would like to leave our audience with today?
Okay, so I'll repeat a few things. Number one, don't do this alone. Get help. Reach out for some supports. whoever it may be, whether it's the clinicians, doctors, psychiatrists, geriatricians, geriatric professionals, whether it's counselors or dementia consultants or, other support groups, their local Alzheimer's society and their community. Reach out, grab all that information. But I also want to remind you that it's not going to be easy. Try to get creative in your day-to-day approaches and basically do whatever works to keep the peace. Really, that's what we're trying to do every day, is to keep the peace.
Mm-hmm. Very good advice. Who is someone from your network that you think would have something useful and inspirational to say on our show here, Boundary Breakers?
Oh, so many of the people that I've worked with
Anyone
as
from your
colleagues.
network that has definitely stuck something important in you that you think would be a very, you know, useful speaker?
Oh gosh, okay. I'd have to sit and think about all this, because there's so many people in this world doing good. And what comes to mind is recently there's this woman who knows that seniors have a difficult time to get around, and so she initiated as an earlier adopter to being mobile and going to help the seniors. And she does the hearing aids. So she's a hearing instrument professional. And Jennifer Abbott has her own company called Hear at Home. And I just
Okay.
love how she's going out there and she's trying to help the people to hear better. And I know that I've met people who have symptoms of dementia who can't hear, but when they get their hearing working again,
Mhm.
their symptoms of dementia improve. So there
Yeah.
is lots of abilities to improve. So
Mhm.
I'm just thinking she came top of mind because recently she's been really making a difference supporting people at home. And I like that.
Yep. Big shout out. I would love to get in touch with her and see what we can make happen because, like you said, there's so many people out there that are doing good that just need to have their voices brought to, the paramount more often. So, we have gone through the perspective, what it's like developing dementia, the different types of dementia, how they differentiate, what it's like being a caregiver, some tips for that. What are some lasting things you would like to leave our audience with today, um, to kind of just cap off this conversation that was super educational? We have a lot of praise in the audience for people that have learned so much from this discussion.
Good. Well, I'll start with please follow your passion. If you're going out into the world wanting to make a difference, please just learn what makes you happy, what gets you excited, because we need more people doing what makes them happy in life. And really, because we all come with our special skills. We want you to use them. And so I'm doing my part in this world of dementia care. And if anybody wants to join me on my what I'm doing on my mission is to make a difference in the world of those with dementia and their caregivers, then reach out to me if you want. I'm happy to support you and answer more questions. If you want to learn more about dementia, just because you're a caregiver or you want to work more with seniors, come and learn from us in our website, dementiasolutions.ca. We've got lots of free opportunities for education and because I think knowledge is power. And so I just want to keep reminding people that never stop learning.
Mm-hmm. Knowledge is most definitely power. And I think you've painted such a positive light onto such a scenario that I think a lot of people have either no information on or a negative outlook on. So thank you so much, Karen, for, coming and teaching us something that I know I wasn't fully aware of and our audience wasn't fully aware of. So thank you for, being open and having this conversation with us, using that experience in a way to make it educational and bring it down to a level where it's easily digestible for people. And I'd love to thank our audience for coming and being so interactive. That is something that's always so amazing for these sorts of conversations because then we really know what the people are thinking, right? So this is a amazing way to, get over the hump day, Wednesday. We still have the rest of the week and the weekend ahead of us. But I've had an amazing time with you guys interacting in the chat and biggest thanks to you, Karen, for, just being here and talking about dementia with us today. So
Thank you
I
for
hope,
inviting me. This was fantastic.
of course, yeah. And I'd love to, promote what you guys are doing. I'm so glad that you mentioned what projects you're working on so that the audience can check that out. But yeah, it
Coming
is,
soon.
yeah,
Coming soon.
perfect. So thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode and, seeing what other professionals and experienced individuals have to say about important societal issues and whatnot. So until next time, everyone enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Julia, let us know when